Hey, what's up everybody? It's Coach Matt over here, Primal Athlete Training Center, www.primalatc.com. Coming to you today with the first video in our javelin training series, our javelin throwing series. And today's video has to deal with selecting and picking out the right javelin for you. Now, the javelin is probably the most difficult implement for you to pick out if you are a thrower, especially if you're just starting out. What you see if you open up any track and field catalog or go to any track and field website, for example, last night I went to mfathletic.com. MF Athletic has about 6 different brands of javelins that they carry. There's all different weights. They're made out of different things. Some are aluminum, some are steel, some are an alloy that's made up of different metals. There are 40 meter, 45 meter, 50 meter, 55 meter, all the way up to 95 and 100 meter javelins. You've got different weights. It's a very difficult implement to pick. And when you have choices of different brands, different things that they're made out of, different meter ratings, it really can be a difficult thing to pick out the right javelin for you. So that's what I'm going to try to clear up today. Now, first and foremost, the different weights of javelins. What you really have to be worried about up until you get to the master's level, where the weights get a little bit lighter based on age range, is there are 2 main javelins. There is the 600 gram javelin, which is used by women from high school all the way through the IAAF Olympic level. And there's the 800 gram javelin, which is used from boys in high school all the way through college and through the IAAF Olympic USATF level. All right? And for each javelin, basically there's different meter ratings. Now this is what's very important about the meter ratings. The meter ratings, as you can see, will go anywhere from 35 to 40 meters, all the way every 5 or 10 meters up until you get to like a 90, 95, 100 meter javelin. Now what does this mean? This is the #1 question that I get from javelin throwers. And when I used to work as a salesman for a track and field company, I did that for 7 years. This was the #1 question from throwers, from coaches, and from parents is, what do these meter ratings mean? What does it actually mean? And the sport that I always equate it to is golf. If you golf, or if you go to a golf warehouse or a golf store, you'll see that there are just dozens of different brands, different stiffnesses of shafts, different types. Some are graphite, some are steel, some are forged. There are literally hundreds of different combos of golf clubs that you can buy. Now, if you're just starting out playing golf, is it going to benefit you to get the most expensive, stiffest, most advanced set of golf clubs that you can possibly buy? Is that going to make the golf ball go further? Absolutely not. When you're starting out, you want to start with a beginner set. A set that's more flexible, a set that has higher loft, a set that is a more forgiving set of golf clubs. Meaning, if you don't strike the ball properly every time, at least it's still going to go somewhere. It might not go perfectly straight, but it's going to go straight-ish. It's still going to go, maybe not 300-yard drive, but it's still going to go out there. It's still going to fly pretty straight. When you're first starting out, you need a beginner, forgiving set of clubs. Now, the same applies to a javelin. When you look at meter ratings for a javelin, the lower meter ratings mean that the javelin is, in essence, going to be more forgiving and a little bit more flexible. If you've ever seen a beginner javelin thrower actually throw a javelin, what you tend to see is that the javelin wobbles a lot when it's in the air. And the reason why it wobbles is because the javelin's not being thrown correctly. It's not being thrown through the point. Energy is not being applied in the right direction or at the right angle, and the javelin's going to wobble in the middle. It's actually going to bow and kind of wobble in the middle. That, for beginner athletes, is a very good thing. I'm going to explain why. If you throw a javelin and you buy a javelin that has too high of a meter rating, a javelin that is too stiff for you, what's going to happen is you're going to go to throw, the javelin is not going to be as forgiving. It's not going to wobble as much. And all that energy that's stored up, number one, is not going to make the javelin go any further. That energy is going to now go into your shoulder, into your elbow, and you could see some good injuries from that, unfortunately. So you want to start off and get a javelin that has a lower meter rating. Now, the meter ratings exist, and this is what I like to tell people too. This is another question. Why give it a meter rating? Why not just give it a temperance, a stiffness rating? And what I like to say is, if there was such a thing as a perfect javelin throwing environment, there was absolutely no outside wind conditions, no environmental conditions, and you can somehow get a javelin cannon that is going to throw each javelin with the same exact force every time, at the same exact angle every time, with no outside conditions, maybe with the exception of gravity. You're not going to have any wind, you're not going to have, it's not going to be humid outside, there's not going to be any external forces on this javelin. Then in essence, the 45-meter javelins are going to go a certain distance. The 50-meter are going to go a little bit further. The 60, a little bit further than that. The 70, a little bit further than that. The 80, a little bit further than that. Basically, if you look at it, if there was perfect conditions, perfect environment, and you could throw the javelin with the same angle, the same amount of force every time, then yes. 70-meter javelin's probably going to go about 70 meters. 80-meter javelin's going to go about 80 meters. But when you're just starting off, when you're just starting to throw, you don't have to worry about that. What you have to do is, if you're a beginner, get something in that 40 to 50 meter range. Intermediate is going to be in the 60 to 70 meter range. And the advanced is going to be to the 80 meter and above. Now, what does that mean? A beginner javelin thrower, I would say, is somebody that throws up to about 150 feet. If you throw under 150 feet, you should be using a 40, 45, 50, or 55 meter javelin, something in that range. If you're an intermediate javelin thrower, you're going from about 150 feet to about 180, 190 feet. For something like that, you should be using a 60, 65, 70, or 75 meter javelin. That probably means you have good enough form, good enough technique, you're applying force correctly, you're able to handle that javelin. For your advanced throwers, we're talking the top guys in the nation, top collegiate throwers, we're talking Olympic level, post-collegiate level, Olympic trials, going to meets over in Europe. Good throwers should use something like a 75, 80, 85, 90, 95, 100 meter javelin. Those are going to be your stiffest javelins, and those are made for the more advanced throwers who are going to be able to apply pressure and throw that javelin. 90% of the time, they're going to be throwing that javelin well over 200, 220, 230 feet, right in that range. Now, the only other thing we have left to cover really has to deal with what the javelin is made out of. Javelins are made out of typically 3 different metals. There is the aluminum javelin, there is a steel javelin, and there is a alloy javelin, which is made up of a combination of different metals to create its own stiffness. Steel javelins, like a Sandvik javelin or a Nordic javelin, usually have a very thin grip, a very thin base around where you would grip that javelin. The aluminum javelins, you're going to find a lot of different brands. Those usually have a thicker base, a thicker grip where you would actually hang on to it. And the alloy javelins are going to be somewhere in the middle. Why is this important? If you have a small hand, you want to go with a steel javelin, something that you can hold on to, something where if you have a huge hand, you would just grip right around it. So those wouldn't be right for someone with a big hand. Somebody with a small hand would not want to use the aluminum javelin simply because the aluminum javelins are really thick in the middle where you would grip it. Aluminum javelins I find are great for people with really big hands, someone with really long fingers, and someone where they don't want that javelin. They really want to feel like they're holding on to a javelin. Someone with a small hand really wouldn't be able to get a good grip. And if you're medium-sized hand, you can just play around. Typically, schools will have a lot of different brands. Find a brand that's right for you. Play around. If you have friends that throw for other schools, try theirs out and see how it works, see how it fits, see how it does for you. So guys, hopefully this explains a little bit better the right javelin for you to use, the right javelin for you to buy. The worst thing you could do as a beginner thrower is get a javelin that's rated way too high of a meter rating. And the worst thing you could do as an advanced thrower is get something that's way too low. You have to find something that fits you. The example I always give is I started golfing a few years ago. I'm still on a beginner level, a intermediate beginner level javelin golf club. Now, if I were to go out and use Tiger Woods as golf clubs, would I be playing like Tiger Woods? Absolutely not. If I were to go out and use Tiger Woods golf clubs, I would probably be playing a lot worse than I am now because I wouldn't be able to handle it. So for that reason, I went out and bought a beginner to intermediate set of golf clubs. And for the same reason, beginner throwers out there should not be using an advanced javelin like someone who's in the IAAF post-collegiate Olympic level is using. Find the javelin that's right for you. Use that javelin. You're going to get a few years out of it, definitely. So 50 meter for a beginner, a 70 to 80 meter for someone who's that intermediate level, and 80 meter and above for someone who is the advanced level. Hopefully this helped you out. Guys, check out primalatc.com for more info, and make sure that you're spreading the word to your teammates and your coaches that this is the place to come to get the best information for the throwing events in track and field and how to train properly to get more PRs throughout your season. Thanks for checking us out.